both of them. Jason was holding them. We're going to come back to that. But the week before that, we had 3 Americans that actually traveled Europe and experienced Europe and had a lean travel in Europe as well. And today we have these 3 Americans with us, and we're going to introduce them first of all. Before we go to that, just the agenda for today. First, we're going to do a bit retrospective of the 2 courses we had in Norway. First, we're going to do the Modig course, the Virtual Builder Bootcamp, and then we're going to do the Tech course. And I also want to hear something from some of the contestants. A lot of them are with us as well. And then I'm going to challenge the Americans on what did they experience in Germany and also in Stockholm, where we actually visited and stayed with Niklas Modig. And Niklas Modig is with us as well. And we have something to share for that. And then part number 2 here. What do we do next? Now we have the knowledge, but how do you use it? How do you actually make these things happen in Norway and maybe start a big adventure? But let us go around the table and introduce so everybody knows who these persons are. So Jason, I'm going to start with you. Could you just say a bit of yourself? Who are you?
Yeah, so Jason Schroeder, my claim to fame is I have a wife and 11 children. They're all mine. I pay taxes for them and health insurance myself. And so that's my big claim to fame. I love family. I'm passionate about construction. I'm kind of a boring person in the sense that all I do is work, church, and family stuff. Work, church, family, work, church, family. So the trip to Germany and Sweden was absolutely fantastic. I really felt at home. It was very nice. I've been in construction for 22 years. I did to university. I worked my way through the field and field positions and have been an avid learner. I've had the opportunity to teach at places like Purdue and ASU for surveying and scheduling and construction management. And I've just really been appreciative this last year to work with people like Spncer and Felipe and to get to know you all and Niklas and to be around really good people. So that's Perfect. Me.
Very good. And then we have Felipe, engineer. Could you introduce yourself, Felipe?
Absolutely. Thank you, Bjørn. My last name is actually Engineer. I married into it. It's a long story, but it has to do with my father, as most of you have names with similar stories. But thank you so much. I am the host of the EBFC show, the Easier, Better for Construction podcast. And I also work by day at McCarthy Building Companies, a multi-billion-dollar general contractor in the United States, coast to coast, where it is my responsibility to deploy the most favorite types of philosophies of all time, lean construction principles, as well as the tactics to enable our work to be easier in everything that we do, serving our clients across the country. I had an amazing time in Europe. It was my first time in Germany, and it was my first time in Stockholm, and my first time in an archipelago. Thank you for that, Niklas. I cherish those memories. All of you are dear friends of mine now, and I've had the pleasure of working with Jason for not long enough. Let's just say that. Jason, you know I love you.
I love you too. There's a round of applause for you, baby.
Yeah.
Perfect, Felipe. But please tell us a little bit more, because your big passion is Scrum.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Isn't it? How we actually...
Sorry, I got distracted, Bjørn. So Scrum. Thank you for reminding me. I started using Lean some time ago, and I got only a little bit better. And then when I discovered Scrum, I exponentially got better. So much I was able to actually leave my project. I was working as a project manager on site, 5 days a week on site, which is very typical for a project north of $70 million US on a multi-year schedule. And when I started using Scrum, I had so much extra capacity that I could be elsewhere. And I started working on other committees, working on other projects, and it just kept scaling. And that's what allowed me to take this brand new position that the company made for me and actually serve the organization as the organization Scrum Master. And I've taught thousands and thousands of people across the construction industry what Scrum is, how to use it in design and construction. And today we have hundreds of Scrum teams working at McCarthy, and I've helped continue to help thousands more in my partnership with Scrum Incorporated with my mentor, Dr. Jeff Sutherland. And I also have a book coming out right now, Construction Scrum, that will be published and available soon this year, ladies and gentlemen, where I tell stories so that you can fast forward, get all the benefits, Bjørn, of my experiences and start to use Scrum instantaneously in a single chapter.
Very good, Felipe. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Is Spncer with us?
I don't see him. He may have he may
Did you
have
text him?
I
Just
did.
not- yeah.
He may have a family emergency. Let me. I will work to get
No
him
problem. Then we'll go to Niklas as well. Some of you know Niklas, but Niklas, tell a little bit about yourself as well.
Right. Thank you, Bjørn. To say I was so impressed. I mean, so nice to see. I see you, Felipe, again. I've had a lot of contact with Jason first, but you have such a radio voice, Felipe. I was blown away. Can you give us some more example with your perfect radio voice?
It's like I was channeling my inner Niklas, and I saw your TED Talk. And Niklas, I have to tell you that my students in my last Scrum class that just happened, we brought in your TED Talk as part of our value stream mapping exercise. And the people told me, like, this Niklas guy is so passionate about these islands, and we just love his voice and his accent. And I said, giving my students even more voices to play with. So we also are fans of your voice, Niklas. So I'm glad that you enjoy
really
my
bad
radio voice.
English. It's maybe fun for the people in the US, but not as appreciated.
Americans love accents, just so all of you know. You should all know that to us, your accents are beautiful, and we dislike our own sound of our voice. That's the very American thing.
All right. Thank you, Felipe. Well, my name is Niklas. I've been researching about Lean for, I think I started about 18, 19 years ago. 19 years ago. And I was within academia for many years and resigned from my university 4 or 5 years ago. The reason why I did that was because I felt that I could do better things outside of university. I was doing action research or clinical research at my university. It means that I work with clients and I write about the experiences from that. So that took a little bit more overhand than writing academic papers, because for me, maybe others are better, but I haven't met many people that read these academic articles, especially within my field. So I felt more engaged in writing management books and developing e-learning programs and actually helping companies. So that's what I do now. I work a lot as a speaker and a supervisor, but 10 years ago, I started to elaborate with how can we scale learning. 2 years ago, since 10 years, I developed a lot of different e-learning programs, which eventually become more than e-learning because we started to pose questions about the things that we learned, so we could actually extract a lot of ideas from many people at the same time. So we started a little bit in disruptive education. Now it's more like disruptive consulting, or I wouldn't say this disruptive consulting on one hand, because our vision is to make sure that we develop self-improving organizations. So it's how can we build people within organizations in an interesting way. So we launched operationalexcellence.com, which is a little bit like, think hotels.com, but we offer digital training programs. And it's me and a guy called Henrik Kniberg, who is a name within the agile world. And now we are launching constructionexcellence.com. We have started to develop programs. And when I say we, I mean me together with Lean Communications. It's Bjørn and Bjørn and Terje that I've been working with. So we wanted to develop an industry-specific transformation program. So we use a platform that I've been developing for many years and a pedagogical technique so we can train everyone at the same time in projects or in global organizations. And here we want to work with interesting individuals and the leading thought leaders within each industry. And that's why we got in contact, or actually that's not why we got in contact. Jason wrote to me 3 months ago and said, "Hi, what's up?" And then we just found each other and we decided to meet up. Then when we met up, we decided, we talked a little bit what each party do. And now we have decided to develop programs together. So Jason mainly, and of course, also with Spncer, and hopefully both Felipe and Brian will come along and develop programs as well. But it's just, we met, I mean, it's just a couple of weeks ago. So, but Jason is launching his program in a couple of months or so. So that's really inspiring. So that's basically what we do. Try to make sure that it actually, can you imagine if we have a construction project in China and they say we need help, what would it take to actually educate everyone? I mean, maybe China is not best because then it would be needed in Chinese, but in an English-speaking country, what would it take to actually be able to work with everyone within a construction project remotely with digital training and coaching? And then I don't mean like this. I actually mean small sequences of training programs, making sure that we can deliver great projects. That's the vision. We are far away from there now. That's why we want to work with the leading thinkers. And I think that's mainly why I'm here. I'm extremely inspired by everyone in this room. I feel like a beginner when it comes to construction. So that's a little bit background.
Thank you. Thank you, Niklas. And also, now we got Spncer. Spncer, are you there?
I am. How you doing?
Hi, Spncer. We're actually introducing, so Jason has told a little bit about himself, and Felipe and Niklas as well. So I would like to hear a little bit about you as well. I know a bit, but tell me, who are you?
Obviously, my name is Spncer Easton. I've been in the construction industry for 17 years. Started as a laborer and worked my way up, and I was sitting in California in a porta-john, and I told myself I'm not going to do this for the rest of my life. So I went back to school and I ended up going into construction management. So I stayed in it and went to the management side and started learning about lean construction and different things. I've most recently, before moving to Elevate, I was working at Oakland as the scheduling department manager, 18 schedulers, and I started implementing TACT and had pre-construction and TACT planning on hundreds of different projects with tons of success, and so we're excited to start sharing that amongst the world and changing the industry for the better, and can't wait to start. So there you go.
Very good, Spncer. Very good. I would like to start with the course we had in Molde that Jason Jason held, and it was about 50 persons, I think, that did attend that course. And Jason, first of all, could you tell all the people here about what was that course? Because it was not a TACT course that we had for the last 2 days. It was a virtual builder boot camp, we called it.
Yeah, so the course, we usually hold those courses in person, and we call them a superintendent boot camp. What we did virtually was probably more like a mastermind. And what I'm always interested in is that builders can leave with a personal organization system, with the ability to organize and support and encourage really good, strong teams, and that we're committed to fundamentals of stability on a project. So we did cover a little bit of TAC planning in that, but mostly we covered the fundamentals of lean in construction, which is respect for people and resources, stability and flow, total participation, and then continuous improvement and fanatical quality. And so when we come in person next year and have a wonderful event together and are able to work in person, the hope would be that that course opens up some opportunities mentally, and that there's a way to collaborate on a weekly or monthly basis up until the in-person event, and that then we can have an emotional and psychological transformation when we're face to face. So that's what the boot camp really is for. We have one on the 27th, and when attendees come, it's all about waking them up to say, expect more. We're usually, our set points are somewhere in the middle, and we want people's expectations way up here.
Cool. What was your experience then? How was it to teach 15 Norwegian people with a 9 hours time difference?
Well, the time difference wasn't bad because I hadn't come back to US time, so that was fine. It was weird stepping out the door and having it be dark though. One thing that I continue to say is, in the Scandinavian people in Norway and Sweden, I find that you're really, really smart. So you have to stay up with the people on the class and be able to answer questions, but also the group was very fun loving and happy and very humble people. So I really like that. How was it working with 50 people? You all made it pretty easy. The other thing is, and I'm not being negative about the United States, it's just a comparison. In the United States, you can give them like a bar of gold, and somebody would say, well, the edges aren't straight enough. Like, I wish it was a little bit, or I wish it wasn't so heavy. Like you could give an American a big bar of gold like this, and they would say, I wish it wasn't so heavy. But when I work with the people in Scandinavia, it's, you're very grateful for everything, even small bits of information. And so I felt honestly really appreciated, really loved, and really accepted when I was doing the course.
Very good. Could we have someone from that course say something? What some of that teas also, what do you think of the course? Could someone please say something from Molde?
It was absolutely great.
Yeah.
We basically learned something that we didn't know exists, even though we knew it exists because we have read the book. But when you sit down, Jason is a great man to tell us what to do. And when I listen to the book now with my dog barking in the leash, it gives another purpose. I understand now. So thank you.
Thank
So
you.
good. Any other reflections of the course? Lisbeth?
Yeah, I have to agree with Frode. It was a great experience. We learned a lot of tools to achieve, like personal organization. That's 2 words I've used lots of time the last couple of days. I think to start there and then adapt into the tools we learned, it's been great. I also was surprised of how the technology, and Jason was very well prepared. So I think it was surprisingly good also with the group tasks and everything we had to go through. So it was really great.
Very good. Any other one want to share their experience with the course in Molde?
I think many people attending had an idea or some insight to TACT, but I think Jason took it to another level and really took a deep dive and showed people the meaning and the power of it. So yeah, absolutely, it was really great and an amazing job done by Jason, though on Scandinavian time, but in the US doing this by night for 50 people over Zoom. It was really impressive. So good job.
Very good job. Yeah, and actually I was a bit worried when we were supposed to have you to Norway, and when I turned it out to a Zoom course, quite a few people actually canceled the course. So we lost about, I think, 6-7 people, but the worst didn't happen. It was a fantastic course. I just joined the TACT course in Oslo, and the energy that you had for 8 hours and then slept some and then another 8 hours, people talked about that. That was brilliant. So that's really good. But Jason, please explain us this TACT course, the difference between the Modig course and the TACT course, because it was more like a deep dive in TACT. We went deeper, didn't we?
Yeah, I was worried that there would be people that did both, because we do some similar things in both courses. But the TACT course really, so when we started it, we covered a lot of theory, and actually we play a lot of videos that Niklas has made, and we cover a lot of information that Felipe covers. We don't cover it like Felipe does, but we mention things like labor productivity. We mention things like small team sizes, context switching, how you should keep team composition consistent, all things that Scrum teaches. And we have gotten feedback over with doing those courses that people just want to get in and make a TACT plan. And so the TACT course, we're getting to the point where we want most everything in the book. And so it got thicker, and there's really good information in here. And hopefully one day we have a couple of things online, video, from a video perspective, that they can watch before the class, because people just want to get in and do the TACT plan. And so that's what we did with the Oslo, the course that we had with you. And I think it worked. People had a lot of questions. What I liked was that we spent in fact, we were behind schedule. We spent most of our time answering questions, and that tells me that people were engaged. So by the time they finished their TACT plan, even though it was in Excel, even though it was in its basic form, I think they experienced it for themselves. And so we went a lot farther in the TACT course in that development, and just spent the time to allow people to connect with the information. And we do stay high level, but even though we stay higher level than maybe doing scheduling with materials like you would do in real life, or packaging the information in a real format that's very, very detailed, or doing a pull plan with real trade partners, I think people get the vision of what we're expecting, and hopefully it changes their paradigm.
Absolutely. And I think the great thing about the course in Oslo was that we had the owners, we had the contractors, and we also had designers all together talking and learning the same language. And that was exciting, especially from maybe the owner's perspective. And also we had a lot of people that had done TACTing for quite a few years. But all of them, as I said to you, Jason, I said that I think we use TACT a bit different between the companies and also what persons know. And now we really got the understanding of where it comes from, and how we actually should do TACTing. And as I said, in Norway, it's quite common to have a TACT time about 14 days or 10 days, or we stay with 5 days. But almost never we do the calculations. At least for my sake, I will really start to do that as well. So that's an interesting part.
And one more comment, and by the way, everyone has to take the Lean Foundations courses that Niklas has, and everyone has to take the Scrum courses that Felipe has. I really didn't understand scheduling as well until I understood those things. What's really frustrating in construction was we have this information, and it's not Niklas's fault, but we have this book, This is Lean, that's been around for 10 years, and it's the key. It's like the single key that brings everything together. And all of us, we just found out about it last year. It was very frustrating that we don't have these concepts earlier. TACT focuses us on flow efficiency. And and teaches us how we have to optimize the entire project on a single flow. And it's a beautiful framework, and it brings in Little's law. It brings in the law of bottlenecks, the law of the effective variation, and just pulls this world together. It's a tool, but it's also a system. And so one of the biggest things that I appreciate about the course is the alignment with Lean, and the alignment with Scrum, and the alignment with the last planner system, so people don't think they're all separate things.
Yeah, great point there. Does anybody who attended the Oslo course want to say something? How did you experience? I know that there's quite a few people that did attend the course that is in this webinar. Anybody want to comment?
That course wasn't as good, I guess.
No, it was. Christian, you did both of them. What was your experience?
Yeah, I attended both, partly on the first one, but I really liked the hands-on, the focus on the tech planning in the Oslo course, the last one, to really get down and into the details and talk about that stuff. So the leadership part is really important, the things we covered in the first course. And maybe it should have been a bigger part in the second course as well, because I think people need to hear that. But yeah, it was really great to attend both of them and really get into the details on the second one. So yeah.
I think you're at a really great point there, because as Jason said as well, you really need to understand the resource and flow efficiency. That Niklas wrote about in his book, to really get to use this thing. So there are some things that we need to get in the project to really get the whole project to flow. So it all comes together like that, and that is important. And a lot of people ask me, when are we coming back, or when do we have the next course, and what we do from now on? And we will come back to that. But before we go that, I really would like to hear the experience that especially you three Americans had traveling to Europe, because you stayed, was it 1 week in Germany at first, and you actually visited different plants, and you visited a lot of construction companies. So let's hear from Spncer first, for example. What was your experience going to Europe and see lean construction in Europe?
It's quite different than what I'm used to seeing in America. The way of thinking and accepting of lean principles is quite more vast. You know, we visited a prefabrication plant, and they were asking us, you know, what can we change? And they, you know, that's not really something that we see, is, you know, inviting others in and asking, you know, give us your fresh set of eyes and help us improve. And between all of us, we gave them a list of things, and they've already emailed us back saying, we're looking into the price of how much that change would be, and the logistics of it. And that just shows you how open and honest, at least the Germans are, to improvement, continuous improvement, and the things that lean teaches us, because they were so focused on how do we achieve better flow. We see that there are bottlenecks, and they actually hadn't really identified some of the bottlenecks that they were looking wrong, because they kind of got in that group think and they were focused on some of the wrong things. And Felipe helped them see, no, this is not your bottleneck. It's over here. See where that pile up of inventory is, and see where the flow actually stops. It's here. You're thinking it's over here. And they're like, oh my gosh. So it was quite awesome. And then the time for me in Sweden was extremely memorable and precious. I love Europe. I hope to be back there soon. I want to be back there soon. I love the people, the food, the culture. Can't say enough good things about it.
Thank you, Spncer. And you, Felipe, what was your experience visiting Germany and seeing lean construction over there?
Yeah, I was in Germany, luckily, for 2 weeks. I was there a week before doing some training at night. And then, so I was taking in Germany and the culture by day in Munich. And I fell in love with the Bavarian people, which is, for those of you that don't know, Bavarian culture is like a different culture in Germany. So I got to experience that part of Germany. And then we went, like Spncer said, to the West, and I got to experience different parts of the country, like in Karlsruhe. It was incredible. I actually had a friend on LinkedIn that teaches at KIT, Karlsruhe Institute of Technology, that I didn't even realize. And it was only luckily that his birthday had happened to be this week that I sent him a message noting just how amazing, incredible the city is that they work in and play. But I think what stood out to me, Bjørn, was the hospitality that you and Niklas and Bjørn showed us. I mean, it was, and the others too, as well, where we visited. It was next level. And I felt instantaneously like members of your family. So, and I can't do enough. If you ever need anything, I'm happy to reciprocate and extend the favor as well. Even if Bjørn wants to come and hang out in my little girl's room, it's okay, Bjørn. It's actually a fun place. There's a lot of books here. There's a lot of books here, Bjørn, that you might enjoy.
I'm afraid this is going to stick with me.
Count on it. You know
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah.
I'm only, and I was this close to putting on a pink shirt this morning. I was this close, and I was like, oh, I'll go with the salmon. But I absolutely loved being able to see behind the scenes of what's going on and to just have so much open exchange. And I think that this is something that for all the people listening in the Lean community, when people like ourselves, like Jason and I and Spncer get together, we are just completely transparent. And I think it's, like I said, when we were having dinner, it is the philosophy and the principles that we're aligned on, like respect for people, like the belief that learning is the default human mindset. And we just have to encourage those things. I love to see that cutting through culture, because there are some cultural differences, and that humanity that we all have and share cuts through all of it and keeps us even more united. So I feel more connected to the planet, and I thank you guys for those experiences. I have nothing but appreciation for you. Thank you.
Thank you. And Jason, maybe you can tell a little bit. I know that you visited the Marcos construction company and you saw like the boards and everything. That was a great example, wasn't it? Or
Yeah, it was fantastic. We went to Germany to pick up their simulations and to learn from Marco and Janos. I have to say, when, Elevate Construction, Spncer and I and Felipe, we're really, really good at most. That's not being unhumble, but we're really, really good at construction management, and I'm really good at the field portion of it. Half of this book came from Marco and Janos, and they have to be given credit for that, and their openness to give us the information and allow us to process it and put it into the overall system. So we went there kind of on a pilgrimage to take the simulation and to do a tour of Bavarian Motor Works. And we found really just a connection with how they approach it from a scientific and mathematical standpoint. And when you put that together with Niklas's concepts of flow from his experience, you really have a magical formula. And that's what I think people experience with the math. When we went to Karlsruhe with Marco, it was interesting to see how a company has systematized everything to follow the takt time rhythm. And it showed me that I have been thinking small about takt and takt planning and takt time, meaning that there could be a day when you talk to Marco and Janos both, where if you put a project on the takt time with the right buffers, everything could be synchronized to that time. And I'm not talking about just everything that we normally do. I'm talking about like companies like Upwork and Fiverr and Uber have found ways to take or like, let's take Uber, for example. They've taken transportation and they've enabled an entire industry of people to do it with a lot of flexibility. And so Netflix with Blockbuster. Netflix put Blockbuster out of business because they digitized this and they put it online, right? A lot of labor is now done from your app right here on Upwork or Fiverr. You can just call a contractor, you can sign up with them remotely and get your work done. I predict that one day, whether it's with us or whether it's independently, that companies or people like Marco and Janos and companies like Weissenburg will find a way to Upworkify or Fiverrify or Uberify construction in a way where everything is organized around that takt time, and we get away from the siloed thinking of our current construction contracts. And so I was here, Niklas is gonna like this. I was here with my thinking of takt, and when we left Germany, it was here. In Weissenburg, they do all of their planning with takt time. They prefabricate according to that takt time. They train their workers for about a month before they go out in the field. All of their field and office positions are aligned in that direction. I could go on and on and on, but the whole company works as a system. It's literally like IKEA for construction. It's literally like IKEA started a construction company where you put it together, you have a showroom, you know exactly what you want, we know exactly the production rhythm, and then everybody knows anybody can go piece it together because it's that simple.
What was the number that they estimated? How many percent of the project in Germany did use takt? Wasn't it about
I think they said it was more than half, right?
Yeah, Janos said it was over 50%.
Yeah,
it's quite impressive. We're nowhere near that in Norway yet. But I would like to touch in on another subject here, because a lot of us meet people in the construction industry that said, I tried lean and it didn't work. And a lot of people, when I talked more to them, they actually tried to introduce lean in the traditional way, taking it from production into construction, and it was a bit difficult. They didn't quite get it. And Niklas, you as well has actually done that travel, because was it 4 or 5 years ago, you started to work with a Norwegian construction company, and your background is mainly not from construction. What was that travel like?
Oh, it's I mean, it started out that I wanted to build a small, we call it friggebod, with this 15 square meters house in Sweden, and I wrote a contract with a little firm, and it ended up take 3 times longer. The cost was 2 times higher. Everyone was frustrated, and it was lawyers who settled the problem. But the only one who could actually tell what was the problem. So I identified like 97 problems in this project that we had, and I did a root cause analysis of each of those 97 problems, and I ended up is that you are the main problem, Niklas. Because I mean, I think I imposed a lot of variation into the process as a customer, and I learned a lot. But at the same time, this was in 2015, I think, and exactly when I was in that, I got a possibility to give a keynote in Boston on the Lean Construction Institute, and then I started to found my interest on this because, I mean, I think it's all about flow, and that was my main conclusion from my research in Toyota. They talk about flow and only flow and flow and flow and flow. For me, it was like, okay, we mention flow in the lean literature, but we don't understand how central it is. And it's not about doing things stable or doing things fast or delivering the best quality. I think it's the driver of forcing us to develop great teamwork and alignment with everyone, because flow is developing a dependent system, integrating us into one system. That's what flow does. And the better flow, the more precise and open and transparent we have to be. It's like a relay game. Everyone sees each other and we deliver a baton. So I think that was so much underestimated, that flow is the engine of system thinking. And when I got into construction, it's quite difficult because you have one shot. And I remember when I started to ask, like, what is flow? And then we talked a lot about, well, we have construction flow, we have design flow, we have procurement flow, and different flows. And then was, okay, if this is the construction flow, how do we divide that? If that's the elephant, how do we divide that into pieces? And then we started to talk about different phases and so on. And then we started about, but what is the flow unit then? Because in production, we have the flow unit flowing through. Or in healthcare, we have the patient flowing through the system. It's just to think about, put up the film camera on the actual flow unit and see how can you develop a good movie for that patient or that product. And then everyone has to work together if we want an action movie. But where do we actually put up the film camera when it comes to a big building of 40,000 square meters? And I think it's quite easy to think about it in design. It's just to take the blueprint. We don't have it here, we have it. What's happening in between, and how do we have to work? And also when it comes to procurement, we don't have a contract signed here, we have it signed. How can we create flow there? And then after the contract is signed, how can we make sure that that contract and that particular supplier or subcontractor is integrated into the project in an efficient way? So it's still put up the film camera, but I think what is very interesting when it comes to TACT, I mean, we talk a lot about flow when it comes to TACT planning, the different trains. But the train for me, making a really efficient train, I mean, the train is resources. So that is basically flow efficiency, but no, resource efficiency. So the flow unit for me now, but I'm still considering myself as a beginner here, is, I mean, put up the film camera in the hotel room or put up the film camera in the different zones and make sure that there's actions there every time. And if we want action in each of 10 hotel rooms, well, then we have to eliminate all variation. And then we can develop a train. So when one trait is done, then the next trait is coming. And then that's the magical combination of actually combining resource efficiency and flow efficiency. But the flow unit for me is still the room or the part of the building. And then a prerequisite for creating great flow, it's of course to develop great trains that are very synchronized. But I think TACT, it's I mean, it's one of the sub principles. When Toyota says we're going to focus on flow, TACT is one of the sub principles. So I think, and it doesn't matter if you start here or here, they're so interlinked. When you can develop a good TACT, well, that's basically when you have eliminated a lot of variation, and the buffer is in the capacity. So we are never late in each of the different zones or each of the TACT areas. And that's how we create flow. So I think this is helping us a lot to understand that construction is not about just doing things in a sequence. It's about really rethinking scheduling from the beginning and make sure that we do the right planning so we can eliminate all the variation between the different traits and the different areas first. Then we can deliver so much higher productivity. But I still learn, and I'm extremely excited to get to know these crazy Americans even more because I learn every day. And I still think that we together have a lot to contribute to the world to be able to explain what is flow in construction so anyone can understand it. I mean, everyone in this room are probably considered to be experts in this. Still, it's difficult to understand. So I think if we really join forces, I think we have to come up with smart pedagogical ways to explain both what it is and how to do it, and to make sure that we don't have shitty products anymore. It's our responsibility to actually make sure, because I mean, what is our purpose? We can do a better world by making sure that we can deliver the best competence to the best projects. And I don't think it's an individual or group thing. It's to bring in all the collective competence and experience from all over the world. So that's why I'm extremely excited. I mean, I'm in Sweden, many are in Norway, you've been in Germany, and you are a lot of amazing people from America. I think this is a very good step in developing the industry.
Yeah.
Amen.
Bjørn, that's right, Niklas. And Bjørn, if I could add on,
Yeah.
in the world, there's a thinking in the collective consciousness of people that lean is an acronym magically that stands for less employees are needed. And lean is typically seen as a cost-cutting measure. I mean, in the company that I work in today, there was an email 6 years ago, and one of the executives said, in an effort to be more lean, we're going to consolidate this one department, and they fired 6 people, or they laid people off. And so all the employees in the company see leadership says being lean is less people. Being lean is doing more with less. And that is not what lean is at all. And even the people that coined the phrase, John Krafcik, working with the researchers at MIT, they said, and Jim Womack said, we struggle to find a word to describe what we were seeing at companies like Toyota. We didn't want to call it the Toyota production system because it would turn people off. And we were just comparing too much to these groups. And I remember when looking deeper into what was so magical about companies like Toyota and others, because there are other companies as well. A lot of the influence that they had early on was Deming. William Edwards Deming, who he hated being called the father of quality, just so you know, he hated that. But he said in his system of thinking about this, he talked about flow as well, but not to such an extent. He said there are some things to focus on, and psychology was one of them. And I think one of the differences why so many lean programs fail is because you get some energetic people, and I've been guilty of this once or twice myself, Bjørn, so energetic about a topic, and we look like do-gooders coming to disrupt a team that's already in play with our ideas, instead of coming to the team to serve them and help them with what they need. And that's one of the big differences on how we do lean today versus how it's been done or still is done in some parts of the world, where we're coming to fix something where people are working every day. Like the companies that we work at make money, sometimes by accident, but they make money and they're seen as successful. So if we're going to come and help people, like Jason said, raise the standard, they need to first understand that there is a higher possibility. And so we need to bring more creativity and show people what's possible, how we can honor them and what they're doing, and then reduce the frustration, because construction is not the most glorious place to work at times. At times it can be very frustrating and difficult. So we can bring some of that to help people increase their capacity with some of these ideas and tactics. And I think that's going to be the big difference on how we move this forward on a go-forward basis. We have to honor people, like if they have a predisposition to thinking that it's a bad thing because of a prior experience, let's be honest about what that is. Meet people exactly where they are, and then let's go and journey together.
That's very well said. And I know, listening to your podcast as well, Jason, I know you talk a lot about respect for people, and same as Niklas. And I think that's an important part in this. Also, we have to respect the people that is part of the construction industry to make this happen. And so we can't underline that enough. Jason, would you say something about that? Because we talk a lot about respect, clean toilets, and everything on the building side. You muted, Jason.
No, I wasn't. I caught that before you did. It's like I'm new at this. Okay, sorry about being muted. Just kidding. It goes back to what Niklas was talking about. It's really about the team. Is the team working together, and is there flow within the team? When workers and foremen and people on the project sites, when they don't feel listened to, then it's like Stephen Covey once said in his book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. if somebody doesn't feel listened to, then it's like there's no oxygen in the room, and there's nothing that can be done until we get air, oxygen back into the room. So when on a construction project, what I learned early on was that workers and foremen have to feel respected before they will be reciprocal and participating with any of our systems. So great bathrooms, beautifully clean sites, organized deliveries, an environment where they feel listened to, worker huddles, a place to eat lunch, barbecues once a month, leadership saying thank you, actually being at the place of work and working with the workers. The workers being able to tell, like, and look into the leader's eyes and know that he or she cares about people. That's where it all starts for me. And that's where, to Niklas's point, it creates stability. Stability is like my big thing. You can't improve anything outside of a stable environment. So, but you can't create a stable environment until the team is right. So that's why respect is a huge concept. And anybody who hasn't listened to Niklas's podcast episode about respect for people, please listen to that. Are we a 1, a 5, or a 10? How do we rate ourselves on how we're treating people? And then Paul Akers gave a really neat example one day. He said he was on an airplane and he went to the restroom and it was all nasty and there was pee on the seat and there was toilet paper on the floor and there was stuff on the mirror. And so he just took the time to wipe down the mirror, and he took paper towels and he cleaned everything up and he made it all nice. And he said, it's not my job to clean the airline, but this airline is a blessing to me. It's a resource. It's a gift. And so if I really respect this resource, I'm going to take care of it. And so if you take Niklas's example that he gives with his father for a good example and a bad example, and you take Paul Akers' example about the airplane, the question is, do we really respect people, and do we respect our resources? And the answer for me is not yet. But I am on my way. I'm going as fast as I can. And I want to have eyes to see, because that's where it all starts. And I think in 80 years, when I've practiced this over and over, I think I'll finally be at the beginning of scratching the surface of understanding this concept, because it's just so important. I think there's so much depth that I just don't even understand, because I didn't grow up in Japan. I didn't grow up with people that respected people. I don't have those eyes to see yet, but I want to so bad. And that's how I feel about that topic specifically.
Thank you very much. If anybody has some questions, just shout out or put up your hand. Of course, this is an open discussion, or just a reflection on what we're experienced. So just use the Zoom hand raise, and I'll get you as well. But I would like to bring back Felipe, because I had the experience. The first 5-6 years, I started to do lean in construction. I was at the building site, trying to fix everything and making tech plans and things. But then I discovered that there was something wrong in the design department. Things didn't come out right. And when I actually went into the design department, I saw that that was a different kind of thinking. They didn't think like a process. There was total chaos. And then I started to develop some kind of method to actually plan better. But just 2 weeks ago, I met Felipe, and he changed my world again, because he started to talk about Scrum. That is a brilliant way to actually handle the design part of the construction. So Felipe, could you say a little bit more how you actually think about design in construction?
Yeah, no problem, Bjørn. I've had the privilege of having so many architects as friends, and they've also come onto my podcast and shared some of the things that we in the construction side never get to hear. So we pulled behind the curtain. And one of the things that I appreciate now about architects and how their training is, in school, they're trained and conditioned to have to balance a lot of things simultaneously. And for some, the design comes like in a spark of and then from that spark of creativity, then they have to create all the details and bring more things specific and coordinate again with like other specialists that have special knowledge. And so that effort and the way that they're trained is just to work until it's done. So they work day and night. And a lot of times once they have a design in school, they have to defend that design, similar to how I think how PhDs have to defend their papers, and it gets ripped to shreds. And it's like a sport where it's like sharks in the water going after chum and just trying to find every little thing that's wrong with it, and they just tear them apart. And when they come out into the industry, then they create these designs, and then those designs get ripped apart to shreds by contractors submitting requests for information saying like, I can't, what is this line that's undefined? What is this thing? And so like, it's the cycle just continues, and it's not like the best environment for them. And they're still also trying to pursue this idea of excellence in design, and they're trying to balance the needs of the stakeholders, to balance the needs of all of the regulations that they're subject to, and then balance the contractor that has to put it all together. So that's a lot of tension on these people. And I didn't appreciate that until I had so many architects tell me what their experience was. And so we said, what if we can let you have all of those things that you need to balance, but prioritize it into smaller batches so that you can do your work? And that's where Scrum has been just a lifesaver for so many designers. I've got friends now that their entire firms across the United States and multiple offices now operate as Scrum teams, because they can do all that balancing and prioritize it into small batches, just like we do in TACT when we make the zones appropriately sized. Because as Jason knows, TACT is just it's an outstretched Scrum. It's just a more developed backlog, in my opinion. But smaller batching the work and then focusing on the handoff to the next person receiving it, the next design person or the contractor, gives them the freedom to actually increase the quality, do all the things that they want without having to suffer through the overwork and being so tired. And so we've seen so many architects actually do better. They still do all the things that they want, but just giving them a framework, some scaffolding to do that design in a more sustainable way actually increases their creativity. I don't know about you, Bjørn, but when you're tired all the time, your ability to do and react to things actually decreases versus when you're energized. And if we let people get into the flow state, doing what they love, we get even better output from them, and they become stronger partners to us. And we've done this with designers at various phases. We've done it in early concept. We've applied Scrum in schematic. We've applied Scrum all the way to just before detailed design. And when we get to that level, we'd like to use other systems like the Last Planner system of production controls, because it allows them, now they know with more certainty, like, how many hours do I need for this sheet? And then they can better plan. But when there's a lot of uncertainty or where complexity is very high, the Scrum framework allows them to batch appropriately, figure out the right decisions to make, bring the client into their work even better, and make things tighter. Like Niklas said, if we put a camera on their pen making the marks, we'd see an action movie when they use Scrum versus big batches of waiting. Because the other way, the alternative, the common way, is we have like massive amounts of work generated, and then there's a huge waiting for all the other people. They throw it over the fence to the next person, or they push a mound of documents and details to the next designer, and then that person has to go through, and they find thousands and thousands of errors and mistakes because the batch is so large that they had to make assumptions. Well, now we know that if you just decrease the batch size, you don't have to make assumptions. You can just turn to your partner and say, hey, does this look right? And your partner can turn to you and say, no, it's not. Try this, or all I need is this. And so we decrease those handoffs. We improve the communication exchange. Information's flowing better, and it gets faster. And we see time and time again, they beat their design schedules, which is incredible to see. I just love watching the architects light up when they stay below their hours. And we tell them, like, you can keep all of that extra profit. Don't give that back to the owner. That's not necessary. Just keep it. Get some better furniture. Get a nicer coffee machine in your office. Take your people out to lunch every now and then.
Perfect. Yeah, that's a good one. Do you get a question, Bjørn? Unmute yourself. Or not?
It's very hard to be a part of this meeting, sitting in a car. Thank God I'm not driving it, so that is my wife. She's driving it. Yeah, very blurry picture there. All right, building on what you're saying, Felipe. With respect to the architects and the rest of the design team, I often find that it's much harder to make an understanding or towards the design team that a flow is necessary, because they're pretty conservative. They're quite used to what they're doing, and they've been working in the same way for, I don't know, a couple of thousand years. And the missing flow or the lack of flow isn't so visible. When you go into a construction site, if you lack any flow there, it's very, very visual, because everything is actual activities going on, equipment, tools, people are being moved around. But in a design team, there is a lot of information that is being moved around. Do you have the same experience as that? Is it harder to try to convince, if you like, design teams to talk about, or being worried about the lack of flow, for instance, in design than in construction teams?
Yeah, it's easier to find a team that's in trouble. So if a team is already behind and there's a need, we can use that problem to our advantage, and then we can bring some relief. So it's one of the first things that I try to do when I get involved. I look at a team, and for design teams, you never get the phone call like, hey, we're just doing amazing and we don't need anything. Like if someone's doing amazing, they're not going to call you, right? But if there's a team in trouble, first thing you want to do is just bring some relief. So we might not start with full Scrum all the way. We might actually start with just getting clear on what the deliverable is. And so like, if you're out there, you're listening, have some patience for your designers, because they're human beings too, just like we are.
Yeah.
And they are going to be really skeptical, Bjørn, to getting help from a contractor, because just how the system is set up with the current contracting system, the owner and how they hire the architect, it puts the contractors against the architect. And every time we find something that's wrong, the owner and some more sophisticated owners will hire construction managers, and they'll be looking to classify all the things that we find that are unconstructable or issues. And they're looking to see, like, is this an error and omission? Can I go back after the architect for against their insurance or against their fee? And so the architect is always on the defensive. And so for a contractor to come in, it's very delicate, because they're going to be suspicious just by how the contract is set up. And so you have to kind of just say like, hey, we're all in this together, and try to use project first thinking, which is what we learn in our lean training. We're here all collectively together for this project that's going to help this client do this thing and deliver this. If it's a hospital, like Jason, we're going to build that St. Jude's hospital together someday. We're doing it so that we can treat people that need treatment and give care to those in need. And that type of purpose can unify the team, and they can lower the barrier of people working together, so that we can say, we're here for this common purpose. We want the same thing that you want.
Yeah. We're going to build that, by the way.
Yes, we are.
Because now we come to maybe the big question, because now we get about 80 people in Norway that have started on a lean construction journey or a tech journey. And where do we go from here? Because how do you actually make this thing work? Does anybody has a thought on that? Because what's your experience? You're not finished after 2 days of a course, and then you're perfect. How do you actually start this journey, and how can we continue it and make it work? Jason, maybe? Or Frode?
So in Norway, or in Norwegian building materials industry, we are very characterized by threats and power. By that I mean that we spend a lot of time not trusting each other. And I feel after the boot camp we are on another platform, so we can start in an earlier stage and plan together. And when the building is going to be built in 18 months, we can focus on that, and not the I don't trust you. Can you please give me a new offer? I don't trust you. I can also, instead we can sit in an earlier stage, plan, find out who is going to be where when, and then we can. So thank you again. This is the beginning. I'm falling now. I have a ball in a steep hill. I'm going there.
Perfect. Very good.
I'd like to make it. Well, go ahead. Sorry.
No. Jason, go ahead.
You know, this is probably a bad answer, but I'm going to give it anyway because it might spark a discussion. When I was 18, I went to Germany and I chased a girl over there because I thought I was in love, and I spent about 4 months there, and I was very surprised, at least then, that the Germans didn't like Americans. We found out why when Felipe and Spncer and I were on a subway, that we were the loud, annoying Americans and nobody else were talking on the train. But I asked them why don't you like Americans? And they said, we're too nationalistic. So that was a real surprise. And I found out, you know, in America, we're like, well, we're the best country on earth. And that's so short-sighted because there's so many good countries throughout the world. So do not take my current comment in that nationalistic light. But I do feel like, unfortunately, whoever controls not controls, but whoever's more influential in the communication, whoever's voices out there, whoever's really dominating in the most popular seat on a social media platform, or whether it's podcasts or whether it's in events, or whoever's voice is heard the most, starts to shift this direction so that we have a common vocabulary, so that we have influence, so that we have a common vision and goals. And so I really think, so unfortunately, the reason I say that, unfortunately, that's some of the same techniques that dictators use to come to power is by taking a national stage and having their voice be heard. But we're doing something great. And I think what we need to do on social media is scale. In our influences, we need to talk about it. I think we need to share. I think we need to say, wow, we were just a part of this event. I think we need to hand out Felipe and Niklas's books. I think we need to be willing to give and to share more information. We really need to become the cool kids and share the information, not for the sake of becoming the cool kids, but for setting an example of there's a better way. And because there's more to, let me just finish this so that I can I'm sure I don't make an ass out of myself. We really need social groups. People will usually turn once they find out that it's more acceptable. Felipe, you had shared a concept that the smallest social group can usually be the most disruptive and create the culture. Do you remember when you told me that?
Yeah, it's minority rule. That Niklas Nassim Taleb made famous in his book.
Yeah, we need to use that minority rule in this industry that's doing some evil and disgusting things, and change the culture and make it unacceptable socially to not respect workers. We need to make it, I'm not talking about from a shame standpoint, I'm talking about from a cultural standpoint, that it's not okay to not run a good job. It's not okay to not have good bathrooms. It's not okay to not have workers with a place to work. It's not okay to have schedules without buffers. It's not okay for a contractor to disrespect a designer. It's not okay for it to go the other way. And I think the more that we're vocal and the more that we spread the information, and the more that the common beliefs and actions of Norway, of Sweden, of the United States are shaped by these wonderful principles and by us, that it's going to change. And the only way it's going to change and that we're going to have that voice is if we stay together. And when I first started flying, I've flown nowhere near what some of you have flown, but I've flown probably over 900 times. I've boarded a plane over 900 times. And when I started that journey, there's something that I thought then that I know now. As soon as I started flying a lot, I realized there's so many good people on this earth, but we're just not organized. We're just not banding together. We're just not on the same webinars. We're just not on the same group chats. And so we have to use the Facebooks, the LinkedIns, the podcasts, what is the new one, Felipe, you want me to get on?
TikTok, probably.
The TikTok. We have to use it's
Clubhouse.
Yeah, Clubhouse. We have to use the Clubhouse. We have to use the webinars. We have to use the podcast. We have to use the speaking engagements. We have to all band together to get this shifted and to turn the ship in the right direction. And I think it comes from, and the reason is, last thing I'll say is because Niklas is right. It's a pedagogical approach. People have to earn this information from themselves. And so really we're inviting them. And so what's going to invite them? I think the excitement, the unity, the love and the kindness and the sharing, and just the desire to be around good people. I mean, when we first got on this call, it was like a love fest. Like, I love you, Felipe. I love you, Niklas. I love you, Spncer. I love you, Bjørn. If more people could feel that giving, beautiful connectedness to a higher purpose, I really feel like we could shift this in a good direction. Sorry for taking so long.
No, perfect.
Can I feed off of what you said, Jason?
Yeah.
So you had mentioned that, that's how dictators came into power, is all their different ways of communicating and making sure that theirs was the only voice that was heard. But really what we're attempting to do in the industry is model what Toyota did, because they made so many changes and focused differently, and really their trajectory went in a completely different direction than the rest of the industry, that everyone flocked to them and wanted to learn, right? And I don't think they necessarily stood on the housetops and yelled, "Hey, this is what we're doing." But ultimately, everybody came to them and said, "Tell us what you're doing." And that sharing started to happen. And as they started to teach, they became better. And that's the real reason of why we're doing what we're doing. It's not to put any one of us on a pedestal. It's that there's change that needs to happen. And we're seeing these little diamonds in the rough all over the place start to pop up, and we get really excited about that, because that's that first step to change this disrespectful, horrible at times industry that we work in. And as we see those things, we all get really excited, and the more we share that and we can influence that across the board, the more those little diamonds will start to appear and that change will happen. So I 100% agree with using all available methods to share and to better our own practices and sharpen the axe continually. Because just like Jason said earlier, 80 years from now, we're barely going to be scratching the surface, because there's so much, and the construction industry is so widespread and so it's vast, and different types of construction and all sorts of things. It will take a massive amount of time and effort for all of us, and any movement on that needle is going to be time well spent for any of us.
Very well said. And I think that is what we have to get up on the stage, and that's in Norway or in the world as well, because we have quite a big opportunity here, and something is happening in this movement, and you won't find this CPM people having these gatherings like we have. So this is a good start. Bjørn has his hand up again.
Yeah, can't resist. I think you're all making very valid points. I was just thinking with respect to the comparison with the Toyota, where everyone was flocking to them and was very curious about what we're doing, and that hasn't happened in the construction business, because like the industry, it's a global industry where there's a lot of competition. There's a lot of, well, if you don't buy a Toyota, you can buy a Honda or whatever. So there's a lot to choose from. While as in the industry, in the construction industry, that is really a very local market, a very local competition, a very local industry. And that has something to do with keeping up the conservatism, which is inside of this business. And to make this movement, as Bjørn used as a word, which probably was the same word as both Spncer and Jason was using, we need to use all all are available aims, not just the intellectual part of it, training and all that, but also showing that there is a better world, there is a better way. And it isn't very hard, but it is something to do with actually wanting to make a difference or making a leap. If all contractors are just comparing themselves with the next door neighbor contractor, then they will never be interested, because they can choose to lower the price by 10,000 kroner or $1,000, and they will win that bid. So we have to show them something else, and that means we have to use both all our intellectual capacity, the training and all that hard stuff, but also influence them via whatever social media, telling the good stories and showing that there are better ways, and even maybe make some kind of brand movement, like, construction excellence. This company is part of a construction excellence, so that we make some curiosity towards what are these people doing. And if we were to come in a position where people were to come to our companies to wonder what are you actually doing, then we will be in the place where the industry has been for several years.
Ooh, can I make a just real quick? We have to do more sharing. And I'm not saying so part of the answer to this is the operational excellence, construction excellence program, is that you get really good pedagogical training. The other thing is, damn it, I'm going to use this analogy because I don't have a better one, but this is evil. But if somebody's trying to get you hooked on drugs, they're going to give you free samples, and then you're addicted. And we have to do more sharing. But so many people are like this with so many things that nobody even gets our drug. Like we're trying to sell lean drugs. So we need to entice and share and be open and talk and really let people tour our companies, let people tour our offices. We need to share videos on YouTube. We need to let people see so they get addicted, and then they'll come do the right thing. And then they'll come onto the operational excellence, the construction excellence program. Then they'll do training, then they'll do consulting, then they'll get facilitation, then they'll work together, then they'll be a part of all of these things. So just want to make that point, is that a lot of times people just don't even freaking know what the hell we have to offer, because we're like this. And sometimes it's from humility, and sometimes it's from scarcity, and sometimes it's whatever it is. But we can show those things and entice them to where then the organization is ready to pay for construction excellence, is ready to do these really wonderful courses.
And there is a big difference. I see you, Frode, just a minute. For the last 10 years, I've been trying to get the information on how you actually do lean or do lean construction or TACT. And all I find is this crazy articles written from academic, and it's not easy to share. But what I see happen the last 2 years with you, Jason, and Niklas and everything, you explain it so easy that everybody can understand it. And that's a really important part, because we can't speak this academic language with the universities and professors and everything. We must speak the language that people understand, and that's the workers and all the other things. Really important. Frode.
Yeah, I can now say word, Bjørn, because it was what I was going to say. One thing I experienced after the boot camp was that we went into that meeting with the fear of technology, and this is an intellectual high level, this is tech, this is IT, this is, I don't want to be here. And when you sit there and you, after 5 minutes, you feel that where's the wall? I understand this. This isn't, and I think the group also, it's going to be our job to tell people that lean and scrum and all the scary words aren't scary. They aren't under your bed and making your night horrible. It's there. It's something you can eat dinner with. It's not scary. So
very, very well said. And I have another thing that I'm quite occupied, because sometimes I get into discussions whether the expression or the tool we use is from VDC or lean construction or some other things. I don't care where it's from. I want to make a great project, a good project, and then use the tools we need. But I'm not too occupied where it comes from or who invented it. Was it Stanford University or Berkeley or Glen Ballard or whatever? So let's just talk about how to use the best thing. But Niklas, I want to talk to you again, because you have actually done this travel as well, because you use now digital technology when you thought about construction excellence and everything. What possibilities do you see within the technology?
I see. I see great possibilities, since if you think about if you're going to optimize an island, then it's quite easy. You can actually get everyone into a classroom and say, this is how you do it, and go out and do it. But if you're going to create flow in a construction project, then we need to involve everyone, both in time and space and context. I mean, all the contracts. And it's very difficult to do that if you don't have used technology. Again, since everyone is dependent of each other, I mean, this idea that you can take out 10% of the smartest people and put them into a room and think it will work if you just work with 10%, I think it's completely wrong. And I also believe that we need to start involving people. I can see still that we talk about, the projects leader are invited, but the people down below, they don't understand this. Talking about presuppositions, they don't understand this. They are usually the smartest, most hardworking people I've ever met. And we say they are not going to be part of it. So I hope that I'm only talking about Sweden, but the disrespect for the workers and not including them in understanding what tact is and understanding what flow is, I think it's just ridiculous. I believe that we can train everyone. And then I don't say that everyone is going to get their computer and they're going to sit doing e-learning, but by themselves. But I think we can use technology to give everyone inspiration continuously throughout the project, from the beginning and through all different phases on all different levels, and make sure that we can have some kind of alignment in how we should work, and then actually tap into people's brains and make sure that they also feel respected and smart. Because my experience is when you start involve people in the lower parts of the organization, they are so much showing appreciation because they are not used to being valued as individuals. So the power that we got, for instance, in a factory, I remember I was working with a furniture factory, and we were going to create flow, and they had a sub-optimized system where they were incentivized about how much they could actually produce per day. So it was just sub-optimization, and the flow throughput time for one furniture was 10 weeks. Then I said, well, if you were, how long time does it take for you and for you and for you, and calculated it's like 3 hours. But I said, it takes 10 weeks. And they say, it's impossible. And everyone said it's impossible. And then I said, can I just hang out with the workers for one weekend and the factory people and see how fast we can do it? And then we gather everyone and say, now we're going to have a world championship in building a furniture as fast as possible. You're going to just build one sofa, but you're going to do it as fast as possible. How would you do it? And then they sat down. The first hand sat down, well, if I do that, you do that. And we created one furniture in 1 hour and 50 minutes. That's a big difference between 10 weeks, just because we involved them and incentivized them, and we started, and that was the starting point of a big transformation. And going back to your question, I mean, I don't know exactly how we should do it, but we have started to use technology in projects where we train them before, and meanwhile, in phase specific training and context specific training and so on. And I think that's the only possible way to actually be able to include. But then we need to write that in the context with our subcontractors. Well, if you work in this, you have to take 8 hours of training even before we want to see you the first time. Otherwise, we don't speak the same language. So I think it's a lot of the actual the clients that have to set those prerequisites. If we don't, or especially, or also, of course, the general contractors, if we do that, then we are able to work with everyone, and it will never ever be possible if we do traditional in-classroom training. We need to use technology, but not only technology, we need to use the people out in the product so they can use technology in a good way, because we cannot send in technology specials, because then we shoot ourselves in the foot again. So simple technology where the project leader becomes the king or the queen. I think, or the person who's driving the design or the procurement, they have to feel that this is simple, I can do it. That's at least my perspective.
Very good, Niklas. Sindri is coming in at the end, I think, but one of Sindri's idea as well, I think is a great idea, is that we actually need to make a yearly gathering, and it should be in Molde, where we actually make this festival or something, or the Lean Construction or Tact Festival. And of course, everybody is invited. But as I said on LinkedIn, let's make Molde to the lean capital in the world, or the tech capital for the construction industry. That would be fun, wouldn't it? And then we say the next summer, we are gathering in Jason and Niklas and Felipe and everybody, and then we are actually having 2 days of learning and sharing and loving and everything. I think that would be great. Is people are with us?
I'm with you.
Sign me up.
Yeah. So I think that Contech Norway is actually we're going to try to make that happen. But let's go back to the 2 days course we had in Molde and Oslo, and I think a lot of people are wondering, what do we actually do? Where do we go from now on with the attendees, that the people that actually attended the course? Does someone from the course are they wondering what to do next? You, Jason, you said something about the tax certification that could be a possibility to actually finish that one, to try to keep the tempo up a bit, not to lose momentum.
Well, I'll give just a basic thought, and this is sincere. The comment that Niklas made about the pedagogical approach, that people need to earn the information and be challenged to think about it, and that we engage everyone with total participation. I mean, that's the way. And I 100% agree that we have to use these platforms to do that. So from a learning perspective, it has to happen. And Felipe and Spncer and I, and I'm sure many of you, and Niklas did this for 20 years, but we're killing ourselves flying around the United States. Like, just literally, I was telling Niklas, it's like I do a 2-day boot camp and then a speaking engagement, and then I'm on a webinar, and then we go to a project consulting, and then I do coaching, and then we come back to this event, and then it's like there's literally, you have to be on point like that, and you can only reach 120 people, right? But with these online programs that you all are developing, and now you've invited us with Construction Excellence, we can reach tens and hundreds of thousands of people, millions of people. So I really believe in that. And then no, there's no but. And so that's the system, right? When we, for these specific courses though, to do kind of a train the trainer and to supplement the online learning that we absolutely must do, I found it really good to do an explain, demonstrate, guide, enable. Explain, demonstrate, guide, enable. So we've explained these concepts. We've demonstrated them a little bit. Now we have to have the guide part and the enable part. They have to, everyone has to be, has the opportunity to implement now with some guidance, and enabled to do that in their jobs. So the way we do boot camps is we do the explain part, and then we do an in-person, or they have a little bit of facilitation, or we do a group call, or we work as teams or whatever. And then people actually take 4 months or 6 months or 8 months to implement on their project, and they report out to the group. And it isn't me that holds them accountable, their own group, their own people. They make commitments to their team. They say, yes, I'm going to implement Scrum and design. Yes, I'm going to experiment with my first task plan. Yes, I'm going to clean up my project site. Yes, I'm going to work and implement good, nice, clean bathrooms on my project site. And then in 6 months or 4 months or 8 months, they report out, this is what I did. Here's pictures of what I did. Here's the video of what I did. And we have found that to be successful between 80 to 95%, meaning when they have a certification course where they actually work with a team to go implement, and then we go audit their jobs, meaning in a positive way. It's not a negative thing. But we actually go visit them. 80 to 95% of people that go through that certification process make massive change. And Spncer's gone to these projects with me after these experiences. So I think whatever we decide, and we want your opinion, we have to implement. The training was a complete waste of time. All 4 days was a complete waste of time if we don't go implement what we learned together, if we don't hold each other mutually accountable in a positive way, and if we don't get to share. Like, how about in 8 months when we do this Love Fest and Niklas makes us crayfish, and we do a sauna, and we're like hanging out with each other? What if the people on the course showed what they were doing, showed pictures of their jobs, did little learning portions for 15 minutes of what they've learned, and really they earn the information? And so I want to just say, speaking for myself, and I know Felipe and Spncer are in it as well, we're willing, whether it's bi-weekly or every month or every quarter or whatever, to take this journey with you before we visit again, so that everyone can be super excited about what they learned and shared and feel like they've won.
Very good. Sindre has joined us. Hi, Sindre. We're doing the festival now, you know?
Hi, guys.
Perfect.
I'm keeping a low profile.
No. Now we had just been talking, of course, but now we're into what's the next step, as you probably understand. How do we take it from here?
Yeah.
So and I think what Jason said made sense. Have you given any thought to it, Sindre? What?
Yeah, it was what you and I talked about yesterday, Bjørn, as a reflection after the courses, that maybe because the tact plans they have to do the certification, you have to make a video and you have to share what you have done. In Norway, and few of those general contractors that were on the bootcamp, they have the money to do some mentoring and coursing into this, do that in the projects. So if we can, through the big projects that do the certification, hold those who do that certification accountable by sharing into the community that we establish, then we can make those big projects learning the smaller projects, and then we can start doing some community mentoring that we all need, and that we can do in TACT, we can do that in Scrum. That was my thoughts of how we can push this further on.
And I think that's a great point, because I know that Jason and Felipe and Niklas and Spncer as well have been talking about this, because it can't be, if you're going to change the industry, we can't just make programs for the big companies that can afford them. We must make programs that are also for the small builders that are affordable, and also when we come into when we actually implement it. So when we talked yesterday, saying that we talked about maybe some networking like this, that we actually meet once a month or every quarter or something, and share that. It would be easier for every part. And that's the thought of the whole thing that Niklas said with the operation excellence or construction excellence as well. It need to be come into a nice level to actually change the world, I think. Does anybody else that have attended the course have a meaning on this, or what do you think? Would it be possible to make some kind of monthly or quarterly report, and of course present on the festival in the summer? Kristoffer?
Yes, I attended the 2-day course in Molde, and for me, I think it's great to report back, because it's when you're trying the tacting on a project for the first time or the second time, and then you have all the real questions. It would be great to have some guidance and get answers to the real questions when you're doing it. Because when you're sitting in the TAC course, you don't get a feeling of how it would be when you implement it in the project. So I think that's a really good way to go about it.
And I think if you actually gather people as well, because of course you can do one-to-one coaching, but I think it's much better that you meet people with the same challenges that you have in your project, and you meet 4 or 5 others that are still maybe made the tech plan for the first time. Then you actually have something to talk about, and then maybe a senior or something that can bring it in. That could be a great idea. Any other thoughts on this?
We're always willing to share at our end. So if there's crayfish and sauna at the end zone, I'm in.
Yeah. You have sauna in Molde, don't you? Not just in Sweden. So
we also want gin tonics. We can probably fix alcohol-free gin tonics as well, but it's a very important ingredient in the Swedish saunas.
Yes.
Molde has the best fish soup in the world.
Oh, that's good.
The best what?
The fish soup.
Fish soup. Okay.
Yeah.
As long as it comes with a sauna, that's. I mean, let's do it. That's a requirement.
As long as it's not made from that fish that's fermented, I'm all in.
Yeah.
I hear you have to have eaten fish in other parts of the world, but in Norway we make the fish good. We don't serve it as trash.
Okay, got it.
Sounds really good. Sounds good. So any other thoughts on how we're gonna either change the world or make it happen? Sindre is just applauding all the time and smiling. That's good.
Also,
okay. Yeah.
My idea, and it's a very how I can do something in this is we have built this Contech Norway. It's nothing but this, as you see, people connecting, and I can set up the next meeting to the latest Friday of October, and then I can start my sharing, because I don't know so much, but I can start share my Scrum process on a project that I started. I haven't gone through any schooling with Felipe because my kid got sick, so I couldn't get that, but that is the plan. And also my thoughts about TACT, and those who can join and start. And if anybody has, you had something, Christian, you could share into this TACT or Scrum or tools or experiences that you have. You can put up a spot and we could start the sharing, and then we can do these iterations each month through the Contech channel, or we could establish a new one. That's something concrete that's yeah, you know what I mean.
Yeah. You have to start somewhere, and let's start where we are. And I think that's a good idea. And I just have to say as well, Felipe, you have your courses in Scrum. Really interesting. I'm coming to one soon together with Sindre. So
Right.
if people are interested in learning more about Scrum in construction, and remember this is a course that is directed within construction, you should contact Felipe. And also listen to his podcast as well, or YouTube channel. Really good, interesting. And same, of course, of Jason at Spncer that makes these beautiful small videos I love, because I keep sending them around to people to get them. The first is free, as you said, Jason. Just look at this, and then they want more and more and more. It's very good.
So the next boot camp we have is with Scrum and Felipe.
I hope so.
I like that.
Yeah.
It'll be fun. I think just to add on, Bjorn, one of the things that an honor that all of you are in this community. There is a worldwide community. It's a small community, but it does exist worldwide with people like yourselves. Each of you have made an investment to learn something, to try something different that contradicts everything you've been taught. So congratulations, you're all rebels. You're rebels in your organizations, and you could be fire starters, which I know in Scandinavia it's can be a good thing. I think you have a proud culture and a great community of people. You're in a community, and you should definitely take advantage of talking to each other more, because you're doing some things together that a lot of people are not. And so I consider you part of my family, and I can't wait to get to know more of you and to hear what you're doing. And it's very important. Jason, Spncer, and I were at a conference the last 2 days virtually in the US, and people that had come for the first time ever, one of the things that they said in the comments after the conference was over is that they felt as part of this community, this broader community of people across the world. We had people from all over the world attending virtually, and that's going to just continue to happen. So you're definitely, everything that you do is part of us. And when I started, I knew nothing. I knew nothing when I started. And now I have the benefit of having great mentors and friends like the people here, including all of you that are learning. So thank you for helping enrich my life, and be good to each other and stay in touch with each other. Learn together. It's more fun with a friend, I always say.
Thank you, Felipe. Kind words. Okay, so where do we go from here, Sindre?
I think we're going in for a landing now in Contech. We don't have to push the time. I know we have at least pushed Jason's time, and it's about time he come to his own time, not in a European time. I just want from the bottom of my heart to thank you, Jason, for this week. This was some kind of excuse my expression, wet dream to finish this thing. I followed you in a long time. Me and Ivan had a awkward meeting with you in March or April, where we asked if you can come, and here we are now. This has been a dream, and I'm speaking now on my office that I say that the tact and the Scrum is going to revolutionize this industry. They are, when I'm telling those and using my energy into that, they all believe me. So I think we have to go in for a landing now, and I'm going to send you out an invitation for the next Contech, and if you come, you come. And I hope you, Jason, and Felipe, and Spncer, and Niklas, if in those communities you have, invite us in Contech into those, and then we can establish those networks. And I want to finish this now. And if you have any last words, Jason, Felipe, Spncer, Niklas, it's all yours.
Felipe and Spncer, you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first. That's it.
Good.
And for anyone that's listening to this or anyone on the call, one thing that Jason taught me early on, like you said earlier in this video, this webinar, when you set your expectations high, you get on this roller coaster ride and you start to learn. And when I first started, I didn't think there was much that I could add globally or even nationally, or even in my company as a whole. And once I started, I got addicted to that learning and sharing. And anyone that's listening could be that thing that changes the world. You see, Felipe Engineer-Manriquez, when I first went to LCI, I'm sitting there and I'm seeing Felipe in front of a room of, 3,000 people giving us, some sort of speech on lean. And I'm like, man, that guy knows what he's talking about. And now I've been able to embrace this man and consider him a dear friend. And I wouldn't even have dreamed of that if it wasn't for Jason waking me up and saying, listen, you should expect more, you're worth more. And the little that I've been able to contribute has helped bless lives. And I'm so grateful for that awakening and sharing. And everyone in the world has that within them. If they just believe in themselves and believe in stepping up and rising to the occasion and actually just sharing, opening your mouth. We all, if we start to do that, will change this industry.
My quick comment, thank you, Spncer and Felipe. My quick comment is that when I was first asked and invited to start my lean journey, we went all in. We started morning huddles. We built custom bathrooms inside of the building. We actually even took pictures of how to replace the toilet paper and everything, and they had sinks to wash their hands, and we would visit with them, and we just really took care of the workers. It was a transformational thing on the project site. And I remember there was an electrical foreman who had been in the industry quite some time. Jake Smaley, a good friend of mine, and I were walking back to the trailer, and he grabbed us and said, "Hey, ooh, I'm almost going to cry." He said, "This is the first time in 40 years that I haven't been treated like an animal." And like, that's the why. That's why we do this. When somebody comes up and says, I stabilized my project and I've had more time with my family and I have avoided getting a divorce, or I spend time playing with my children now, or hey, which we've all gotten, my husband comes home and he actually enjoys work. Like, that's the why, And so I just feel like, this is a greater purpose, and this is why we're all in this, and it magnetizes all of us together, that common energy. And so I hope we just remember that back to some of the things you all said, it's about people. And at the end of the day, when I die and when you all die, we're going to look back, and when we give an accounting of what we've done on this earth, we are going to be able to say that the world was just a little bit better because we were here. And so I appreciate everybody enabling and helping each of us fulfill that mission. And that's all I have to say.